What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're just gonna be watching some scary videos, and it's gonna be a banger. Hope you guys enjoy, and yeah, hope you enjoy. All right. What the heck? Oh, this. All right, let's see. Alright, we gonna watch. How about watching animated? Watch out, Ginger. Alright, you guys ready? About to be a banger. Alright, so we're gonna be watching 13 True Horror Stories animated. I have a question. Yes. Tell everybody what
I've learned one thing from my one and only experience picking up a hitchhiker. Don't pick up a hitchhiker. It was a Saturday night, probably around 1 in the morning. I was driving down the 542 in New Jersey, a route I commonly took to get into town. It was a long stretch of nothing but woods on either side with the occasional residence. I was on my way back home from town, and as usual at this time of night around our quiet old town, there was not a single other car on the road. I turned on the off-road lights on my Jeep to have optimal vision on the unlit highway, which allowed me to spot somebody far down the road, just standing at the side. As I got closer, I saw him raise his arm up and stick up his thumb.
Don't stop.
He was trying to hitch a ride.
Don't stop, bro. Don't stop.
My heart
Don't stop.
started racing. I had no idea if I should stop or not.
Don't stop.
I slowed down just to get a better look at the guy, first of all. He seemed like a younger man, maybe 28. He had on a light gray hoodie with the hood over his head and blue denim jeans. The time to make a decision was immediate, and with a lack of my better judgment in the heat of the moment, I came to a stop, rolled down the window, and asked, "Where are you heading to, friend?" "Just up the road," he said in a deep, quiet tone. "Hop in," I called out the window. He opened the door to my Jeep and stepped inside slowly. Jeep Wranglers have very tight seals on the doors, so when he tried to close the door the first time, it didn't shut. I politely said, "Oh, the door didn't shut. Just open and slam it shut real hard. These doors are hard to close."
Real hard. That's what she said.
The body language he was giving off in response was unsettling. About 3 seconds after I had finished my sentence, he looked at me, then turned his head slowly to the right, and again waited 3 or 4 more seconds before finally opening the door and then slamming it back shut. By the way this guy was moving, I already regretted my decision to let him in. I put my foot on the gas and we started moving along the road. The speed limit on this road was 55, but I was going 75 just to get the guy to his destination quicker. "So, how far did you say you're going?" There was an awkward gap of silence before he replied with, "Just a few miles up." I wanted to turn the radio on to kill this awkward and downright creepy silence, but something in my head told me not to for whatever reason. Suddenly, I could see just through the corner of my eye that the man had turned his head and was staring in my direction. At this point, I was telling myself that I needed to get this guy out of my car. For a good mile, I felt his gaze just hitting me like a brick, and all the while I tried my best not to look back. Finally, he turned his head the other way and said, "You know, I've been wondering for the longest time if it's just worth it to end it all." I looked at him in confusion. He dug his hand into his pocket and said, "I've been carrying this knife with me for the past few weeks, wondering when the right time would come." He pulled out a big red knife from his pocket, and at that instant I felt like my stomach had dropped out of my body. I told him to put the knife away immediately. He told me in a calm, emotionless voice, "Pull over next to that sign." I did what he said, coming to a stop next to a speed limit sign. and what followed still haunts me. He began to slit his forearm next to 3 other scars from previous assumed self-inflicted cuts and let out a disturbing moan. I managed to choke out the words, "You need to get out of my car right now, buddy." He looked at me again and said, "Get out of the car. I want to show you something." I told him no.
Don't do it.
He raised his knife up closer to me as an obvious threat. "Just get out for a second. There's something I want to show you behind that sign." I knew my life was on the line and I had to be smart. I said, "Yeah, okay, man. Let's go." I opened the door to my Jeep, making a point of leaving it open, raised my hands in the air and backed away slowly from the door. He too left the car and started walking over to my side. At the exact moment that he was directly behind the car, I jumped back in, threw it into drive, and floored it down the road, never looking back. I got back home within 10 minutes, still breathing heavily and wanting to throw up. This was the scariest thing that has ever happened to me. And I urge everybody and anybody that if you by some chance see a hitchhiker on a dead road at some odd hours of the night, do not take any course of action other than speeding right past them.
Do that, you Dumbo.
Better watch them out. This is a family friendly.
Dumbo.
It's on the plane.
Hey,
I'm sharing this
Dumbo.
life experience of mine with the internet as a public service announcement to be careful
I
with
want to do one
Craigslist
more and then
or
we
any
have to end
similar
the video.
websites. I happen to
Then
be
we're gonna go
browsing
part
the for
two.
sale section
Yeah,
of
part two.
Craigslist trying to find a used
Playlist.
laptop.
Go to his playlist.
One listing
You'll
really
see.
got my attention.
episode
Some
2 is
Dell
gonna
touchscreen
be-
laptop for 250
Maybe
bucks.
today, maybe tomorrow.
It looked like it was
It's
in
gonna
good
be
shape
scary.
with very few minor cosmetic imperfections.
You can literally start earning digital
Bruh,
currency of the future
these
just by
ads are
downloading this app.
annoying.
I drive to a separate place to work and I skate.
Get out of here.
I texted the owner, who introduced himself as Dave, and told me I could come pick it up that same night. He offered to meet halfway somewhere so that I wouldn't have to drive all the way out to his place. I live in the countryside, so he lived a solid 10 miles away, which would equate to a 20 to 25 minute drive. Since there aren't many notable places near either of us, we agreed to meet at a 7-Eleven parking lot. I got there at the agreed upon time, which was 10 p.m. sharp. I waited around for a few minutes, then I decided I was going to give him a call. But just as I took
Mr.
my phone
Nightmare.
out of my pocket to call him, his name came up on my phone. He was calling me. I picked up, skipping the hello, and just said, "Dave, what's going on?" There was a loud background noise on his end, maybe from his driving. There was an initial moment of silence before he started talking. He said he wouldn't be able to make it all the way to 7-Eleven because his car was making weird noises and he didn't want to go too far from home. So he pulled over to the side of the road off some side street. But when we say side streets out here, we don't mean side streets surrounded by buildings or houses. Side streets out here usually mean roads with no streetlights and surrounded by forest or farms.
I got out of there.
He gave some bizarre description of where he was. There was no way I'd be able to find it
That was
ordinarily.
my cue.
So I had him send me his location through his phone. He really was just parked on the side of some side road somewhere. I really didn't know if I was comfortable going at this point. It seemed way too suspicious. I'd heard all about those Craigslist horror stories before, and this seemed like the cliche build-up to one. Against my better judgment, I started driving over to Dave's location anyway. About 5 minutes of driving later on some completely pitch black road, I eventually saw the reflection of someone's taillights parked on the side of the road. So it had to be him. I pulled up behind the car in the grass next to a large cornfield but kept the car running. I turned my headlights off for a second and it literally became blackness in every possible direction. So I turned the headlights back on. Weird though, I didn't see any light from his car, not even the light from the phone. I called him again. He picked up on the first ring and said he had to run into the crops to take a quick piss and to just get into his car so that when he gets back he could quickly show me his laptop. He hung up before I could even get my response in. This was too weird for me. I really didn't know what to do.
Better watch your mouth, boy.
I guess I figured I'd step out of the car and just wait behind the door for this Dave person to come out. He said he went into the crops, so I kept my eyes on the right side of the road by the crops. What a strange place to have any kind of exchange other than a drug deal. It didn't seem right at all. I stood right by my car door for the longest time, easily 2 or 3 minutes. There was no way he was peeing for that long. It was starting to seem like it was time to go. I'd give him another 30 seconds, I figured. In the final moment,